She's a defender of donuts. 3 meals are faster than none. She'll make it all good in your neighborhood. She'll make sure we have loads of fun. Who will help Lily? Who will catch Billy? It's Trixie the Tricycle Trooper.
Hi Flosstube, my name's Jody and I'm Trixie Tricycle both on Instagram and here on YouTube. And this is a channel about cross stitch and crafting and bugs and dogs and fun stories about grandparents and primarily cross stitch. So today I'm going to do kind of a I guess everybody calls them a whip parade. I'm just going to give you a progress report on what I still have in the works for this year, and I thought this would be a good way for me to document it too, be able to go back and take a look at how many projects I have going and also where I am on each of those. So the last few weeks I haven't been able to do too much stitching. There's been a bunch of other stuff that's gone on that I'll share some of that with you today. I'm also going to share a little bit of haul. I was able to get a sewing machine table, in fact 2, so we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then I'm going to do a few giveaways. So to begin with, the last couple weeks, as I told you in my last video, I had some bees show up to move into my house. They moved into my yard, and I used to keep bees a long time ago, and one of my coworkers had taken, because he and his wife kept bees, so they had taken most of my beekeeping equipment and were sort of had it on a long-term loan. And about a month before these bees showed up, I had gotten a call from him and he said, hey, they were going to be doing some work around their house, and so this year they're sort of skipping the beekeeping. And it had been about a year or so since they'd had any anyway. And so he's like, would you like your equipment back? And I'm like, yeah, I could take it. And, we'll figure out some way to either send it along or repurpose it or whatever. So that's one of the elements that I think contributed to why the bees were attracted to, under my deck, because that's where those boxes were stored. And for beekeepers out there, you guys will understand this, but they were not set up in a way that would be conducive for bees to move in. When you have a hive, and most of you guys have seen this, and there's a billion videos on YouTube, but a hive has a series of stacked boxes, and the boxes are hollow. And they have rims on the interior that you can hang what you've seen before when you see people pull a frame of wax or of honeycomb with bees on it. That's called a frame, and each one of those big boxes is wide enough for 10 frames to sit in there. And so by being hollow, you can stack them on top of each other, and if you set them on what's called a bottom board, that bottom board has a little bit of a lip around the edge of it with an open end on the front so the bees can march right in. I had them stored in a way where there was no bottom board, so there wasn't actually any space between where they were sitting and the next boxes. And then I had a top on them. And it wasn't necessarily to prevent bees from moving in, but as sort of a, coincidentally, it should have kept bees from moving in. But they were drawn, I think, just to the scent because the frames themselves had been used in previous beehives and they were cleaned out, but they did have a little bit of existing wax. And, I think bees just can sense when other bees have been in and around equipment. So when I went out and when you saw that little clip of me out underneath the deck, I had already moved the preponderance of that equipment out of that area. But they had found a little bit of an access, I'm not sure how, but they found a little bit of a way in. It could be that maybe one of the boxes was slightly askew and so there was an opening. But as I was moving those boxes off, that's where I found that big bundle of bees in there. They are doing amazingly well. This queen bee is one of the most prolific that I have ever encountered, and I've been doing, I've sort of been brushing up a lot on reading about swarm activity and what may have drawn I did a lot of reading when I was keeping bees before, but this time around I've had a little bit of time to sort of really dig into the biology of bees and hive behavior, and it is so fascinating. I literally could just spend an hour talking about bees and how they swarm, but instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is link a couple of videos and some information below. There is a researcher, his name is Thomas Seeley, Seeley. He wrote a book called Honeybee Democracy, and I've been listening to it on audiobooks as I've been doing stitching the last couple weeks. And it talks specifically about how bees make the decision as a group to not only swarm, what that's all about and why they do that, and it's that piece is fascinating, but then also how they make the final decision on where they're going to live. And that I didn't have that nuance before. I didn't understand how that worked, and it is fascinating. If you're into that kind of thing, this is definitely, a book that you might want to take a look at, because we always have this assumption that the queen bee, she's the one that makes the big decisions and all the bees just follow her, and it really isn't like that. Anyway, so yeah, Honeybee Democracy. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything to do with how bees make decisions as a group. And he also has a few videos where he goes into detail about this. They're kind of a TED Talk style, but more like a university lecture, where he's discussing in detail how he did his research and why it took until the 70s before they could really start to figure out what it was that these bees were doing to communicate with each other and how to sort of relocate and make those decisions. And it's been super, super interesting. A lot of you guys did give feedback that you're interested in seeing some video of the bees, and I am still trying to figure out the best way to do that. Mainly, I need to have someone help me to document that. And both times that I have opened up and inspected that beehive in the last month that they've been here, have been kind of, exigent situations where it's like, I think I need to look at these right now. And so I haven't had time to get, both times my husband's been at work, and so he hasn't been able to help me out with taking video of those, but we will do that. And again, I know not everybody is super into looking at thousands and thousands of bees, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a warning here. I'm going to show you some footage of something that happened in 2013, back when I was keeping bees at my other house. And to give you a little background story on what this is, we were doing a construction project at our house, and it was, this time of year. He had gone out to go grab lunch, and I was still in the backyard, and he comes back almost immediately, and he's like, there's a swarm in the front yard. So I was like, oh. And I think I had maybe 3 hives at the time, just little garden, hives. And so they had, I think, left one of the hives, and they had gone across the driveway, and they were up in a filbert or a hazelnut tree. And so, suited up, got all ready to go. It was like, oh gosh, we got to get these things back into a box. And our plan was, because they were high enough that I couldn't get to them without being on a ladder. And they were just sitting on a tree branch. You're not going to see that part in the video. You're going to see the aftermath. The branch itself, the diameter of it was small enough that we thought that we could take a pruners, like a long-handled limb pruner, and he could stand below and trim that, and I could hold on to it and stabilize it. You can see where this is going. And then we could just lower it down. We had a box, we had a hive box ready to go. And then we could just shake the bees into it, put the lid on, and any bees that may have escaped or gotten out or been shaken down onto the ground instead would be, would be able to just kind of leave them. Because the idea is if you get the queen, if the queen's usually in the very center of that big, some people call it a big beard, or it's just a big oblong ball of bees that you see on the news, like, oh, a swarm of bees at the car dealership, and it always shows up on the evening news. But yeah, so they're typically, the queen is going to be in the inside. And just as an aside, for those of you that don't know, if you do ever see a swarm of bees like that where they're just all hanging, it can be startling. But if you don't disturb them, and even if you do, they are really not in an attacky kind of mode at that point. They have eaten a bunch of honey. They are all about just protecting the queen and keeping her kind of safe, but they're usually really, really calm. So yes, if you get the queen, and if she gets into a hive box, usually the rest of the worker bees are going to figure out where she is, and they're going to make their way to her. What happened was that I'm up on the ladder, got the branch on either side. We're trying to keep it as still as possible. And when those loppers went through at the very end, it did that thing where it just, boom, it sort of snapped and there wasn't quite enough tension. I didn't have it stable enough. Sure enough, it shook the branch. And all of those bees, with the exception of maybe about a grapefruit size right around the queen, the rest of the bees just went and ended up in the planter bed below the ladder, kind of all around where that hive box was. It's like, oh God. So now we have, 10,000 bees on the ground. So I quickly came down the ladder carefully without stepping on the rest of them and shook the remainder of the bees off of the branch into the box, put the lid on, and what you're going to see in the video is what happened next. And it's hard to hear us because there's a lot of activity. A lot of the bees were airborne at that point, and so there's a lot of But one of the things that I said, and I'm not sure that's going to be in this piece of it because I'm just going to show you a little bit of it, was that I had done a lot of reading, and at the time there wasn't in 2013, we're talking 8 years ago, not quite as much YouTube, it wasn't quite as prolific of people sharing videos. And so I really had never seen anything like this before. I had read about it, where if you get the queen into that box, they will all just kind of turn and march in. And it is unbelievably impressive to watch it. So anyway, without giving too much away, one of the things you're going to hear is the two of us are sort of doing the typical, married couple banter, talking about it. And we are both stunned. We cannot believe what's happening in front of us. So at one point he says, this needs to be set to bolero. I was talking about the music, right? And I heard it as, this needs to be sent to bolero. And I was like, what's bolero? And so for a moment I was like, what? Wait, what? And I said, oh, and then I got it, kind of chuckled and said, I was going to say, is that like a new app? Like, is that like Reddit? So anyway, that's what we said at that point. And so you're going to hear that. So I'll let you just watch the video for a few minutes. And again, spoiler alert or warning alert. If you don't like to see a lot of bugs, then don't watch this. You can fast forward to, 3 minutes from now.
I've only read this in books. I just kind of never believed that they would just go marching in like, okay, cool, here's our house. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Bees are so awesome.
Yeah. so glad you saw that.
This needs to be set to Bolero.
What's that? Oh. I was like, is that some new, like, is it like Reddit?
Yeah, it's like Pinterest for bugs.
Okay, so kind of remarkable. The fact that it didn't take that long for them to communicate to each other. And the way they do that is that they'll have bees at the entrance that fan their wings really, really fast. And that sort of spreads a pheromone. But they are able to then just sort of collectively all march in one direction. And it didn't take very long for all of those bees to be in the box. I left the box there long enough that they could all, find their way in, and then, relocated them, which is a whole other thing. And that hive, from my memory, it did okay. But yeah, that was a pretty remarkable few minutes. And my husband had saved that. He'd had that video for obviously years, and we just in the last, couple weeks tracked that down. So I was really glad that we were able to find that and share it. So anyway, that is the bee part. So more to come about that, but I decided I needed to, set up my background maybe with a little homage to bees. And by the way, this, that pillow right there is a gift from my mom. That's just a stitched panel. And that's a bumblebee. Just to be clear, that's a bumblebee. That is not a honeybee. We'll talk about bumblebees later. I love bumblebees too. We all love bumblebees. We're not original. It's like bee. Like, what's not to like about bees? Wasps, that's a different story. You want to talk about yellow jackets? No. I understand that they have a purpose. Yeah, we're just going to leave that one alone. One other thing that I got to do over the last couple of weeks, which was super fun, was that I got to have an actual in-person stitching meetup here on the deck. We did some stitching at my house, and with Kelly from Minimalism in the Making. Super fun. It's great to actually be able to hang out with people in person, and I'd like to do that more, and hopefully, more people that are here in the Northwest might want to, come hang out on the deck. People, hello, anyone? Would you like to come over, hang out, stitch? It's not weird or anything. It's fine. Anyway. So yeah, that was great. It was really fun to have some time to catch up and hang out and, get to know actual real life people. So YouTube is great, but in person is super greater. That also makes me think of the last, since the last video, been able to watch a lot of people do recaps on StitchCon. And that looked like it was really, really fun. So for everybody that posted recap videos and shared their experiences, thank you. That was super fun to watch. And for Pam and Steph and the whole crew at Keepsakes, I have done a little, like in a past life, I've done a little bit of event organization and I've acted as that. When you put on a big complex event like that, there are people that have done so much prep work and so much of that background work to make something run smoothly. And I've always described it as being the person that if everything goes right, no one notices you. If anything goes wrong, you're the one. You're the one that either fixes it or gets looked at. It's like all of a sudden everyone's looking at. So I know what that is like. And running two events consecutively, one weekend after the other, I'm floored by that. That is really, really impressive. But it looks amazing. And listening to Pam and Steph on their channel is Just Keep Stitching, which obviously you know that if you're watching me, you're already watching them. So really, really fun to hear about a lot of the background, and hopefully, maybe fingers crossed, I'll get to go sometime. So, yeah, I'll have to do a little more looking into that and what it takes to get there. But anyway, so that was really, really cool. So thank you all for sharing those things. So a few people had comments that I wanted to sort of chat about. So Terry Hall, when we're talking about Second Use, which is that sort of reclamation store where they go and they'll take construction materials out of homes that are being demolished or buildings and do resale. She said that she had gone and found a Singer 201 sewing machine at a place in Philadelphia called the Resource Exchange, where, get this, reclaimed materials, awesome. Philadelphia, also awesome. It's one of my favorite cities. Mostly from movie sets. What? I need to go there. Like, really soon. I want to go there. Bad. So Terry, thank you for putting that on my radar. That was kind of awesome. And then Lori, her channel is Textile Style. She has a YouTube channel where I can't even start to enumerate the ways that I love her channel. Her aesthetic, which isn't necessarily what I have in my house, but I have a huge appreciation for it. Beautiful, beautiful quilting, beautiful cross stitch. She and Olivia B, also completely addicted, both of these channels now, are doing a Blackbird Design quilt along. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in haul. But Lori had commented on the last video about sewing machine cabinets, and the resource is Max, which is a website, the International Sewing Machine Collectors Society, which is a wealth of information and a great resource. I had used that to look up the serial numbers on the Singer to kind of get an idea of the manufacture date, etc. So talk about that more again at the end. And I'm super, super excited about their stitch along or their quilt along that they're going to be doing. So anyway, without further ado, we're just going to go into some stitching stuff. So I'm going to just start from my oldest work in progress, and we'll work through all the way through new starts. And so I'm not even going to go into new starts. I'm not going to go in order because you're going to see that as part of the work in progress because I started it and I'm still working on it. It may be the most recent one, so it'll be last, but that works too. So, okay. So, the oldest whip that I have, this was started in December of 2020. Anything I started before that is already finished. So this was on December 4th, 2020. And this is by Teresa Kogut, Pet All the Dogs sampler, which is super cute. And so that is done on 35 count. It's pretty much the called for. This is 35 count Weeks Dye Works tin roof. And it's with the called for DMC. So I didn't get very far. I got a little ways, but this is basically where I have been since the last time you saw this. So just kind of started with the outline, got a little bit of the border. But I'm looking forward to continuing to work on that one. So, whip number 1. The next one I started on December 31st, which is when the stitch along started, 2020. And this is in a project bag with a little, whimsical aminals. Anyway, I thought that was cute fabric. It's just got a little polka dot on the inside, and then I put a little zipper pull on it that's got, I think it has like a seahorse and a starfish, maybe an elephant. Anyway. So that is Lindy Stitches. Let's go this way. Maybe let's go right side up. What do you think? So Stephanie at Lindy Stitches. This is the Funky Menagerie Stitch Along. It's really cute. And I have done this on a piece of 28 count Iris Lugana. And that is by Under the Sea Fabrics. And this is with the called for DMC. So, I love it. I'm not too far from being done. I think I'm about just a little ways through section 3. And I'm stitching that 2/2. So, keep working on that one. Next, and this is one that you guys actually, I showed it on my last video and you guys gave me some really good suggestions. This is, it's called French Country Crow by JBW Designs. And I did this on a piece of 40 count linen and started it. Didn't like the way it was looking because it just looked a little too thick. And so these are the two different starts that I have on that. So the first one is the one on the left. Nope, on your right. On your right, you'll see the start that I was not super happy with. And that was 2/2 with the called for Gentle Arts thread. And then the other one is what I started on since the last time you saw this. So almost immediately after I did this video, when folks started giving me suggestions, what I ended up doing, so Stitching Cat had the suggestion, and I think this is what's going to work for this particular one. She stitches it 1/1, but then recommended that I do the top leg twice. So that's what you're seeing there. It's still 1/1. Correction, that's, sorry. It's 1 thread over 2 with the top leg stitched twice. So I know it takes a little bit longer that way, but I'm really liking the way it's looking. The other suggestion, I didn't have any sulky, but was to use sulky thread. So I may try that, but just in the interest of expedience, I went ahead and tried the doubling up the top leg of the X, and that has worked really well. So the next one, started this on December, no, not even. Started that February 14th of this year. And that is this one that you're all familiar with, Gileget by Reflets. This one I'm stitching with the called for silk, and it is on a piece of 36 count haunted linen by Picture This Plus. And I love it. And it is stitched 1 strand over 2 threads. So that is where I am. It is exactly where it was on my last video. When you guys saw it, I've not worked on it. Love that one. Now the next one I didn't have a date. I'm usually pretty good about documenting this stuff in my book, but I couldn't find a date that I'd actually started it. I do know that I started it before April. Because there was a photo of it up on my Instagram at the end of April, I believe. So this was, it's got to be sometime in March that I started it, but this is the free pattern, and I'll put a photo in here, by the Black Needle Society. And this was in the Be Well and Stitch hashtag, and this was called Honey Bunny. And I have adapted it for a Pulp Fiction movie quote, "Be cool, honey bunny." And I am still in the process of deciding exactly how I want to fully finish. I do have an idea, it's just executing it, and I'm a little stymied on how to execute that. But this is my own color conversion, and I added the Be Cool to it. The original pattern just has Honey Bunny on it. Super cute. So that is on a piece of 32 count broomstick linen by XG Design with floss from my stash. All right, the next one was started on March 30th of this year. Oh, and G. Leger is in this. You've seen this project bag. So next, in this flowers and bees, pull this out. This is actually just a little bit of little honeybee fabric on a honeycomb. Cute. But this one I started on April 30th, and this is Blackbird Design Strawberry Fields Forever. This is in the Magical Mystery Tour series, and I did this as part of my May stitching for 2021. And there it is. That is on a piece of 32 count honey linen, and that's by Be Stitch Me with a called for floss, and that's 2/2. Okay, the next one I started on the 7th of May, so this was the following weekend, and this is also part of my May stitching, and that is Octopus's Garden by Blackbird Designs, also in the Magical Mystery Tour series, and it is in this project bag that is kind of a spooky apothecary theme fabric. I think I just got it at Joann Fabrics, with kind of a alligator crazed, I don't know what to describe it as, but it's just a brown pattern fabric, texture fabric. That is done on a piece of 32 count tarnish linen by Picture This Plus, and that's 2/2 with the called for floss. So that's where we are with that one. So the next one was started on May 14th, and that's our Joan Sands 1836 stitch along. This is in also same design. It's just a second project bag of the same design, and this is a photo of it, but my printer colors are actually, you know what, I'm not even going to show it to you because that's not fair to Jacob. I don't have my I'll put a picture of it because I don't have my iPad tuned up right now to show you guys, but this is my progress on Joan Sands 1836, and I actually did work on this a little bit over the last, this is kind of what I was focusing on, and I am really liking it. This is on 38 count Wayfarer's Cloak with the called for DMC, and even though that house is really close in color to the fabric, in person it stands out. The texture is more than enough to make it visible. So I think with the windows and finishing up the roof and with everything that's going to go in around it, it's going to be fine. So yeah, that's where I am with that one. And the stitch along has been really, really fun. So keep moving on that one. At some point in there, I also started this little baby Little by Little. And that's Axe of the Heart. And this is kind of a little foray into stitching on little tiny fabric. And it is in this kind of tropical bird. It's just budgies. It's parakeets. I think Nikki Noodles in one of her videos was talking about how they have a bunch of budgies, and I found out later that she's got them in sort of an enclosed aviary at her house, which is like, how cool is that? But when she mentioned it to begin with, she was talking about, you know, that they were just flying outside and kind of all over, and I was like, if we had a parakeet outside in Seattle, there would be like a search party. There would be, you know, notifications on Nextdoor. Lost bird. Anyway. Parakeets. So here's that one. This is on 46 count. I think it's 46 count cream. Let's see, is that what I have? Yeah, 46 count cream linen. And I just am doing that with a little sort of stitch from stash. Okay, so yes, that was Axe of the Heart, Little by Little on 46 count cream. And I'm stitching that with Floss from my stash, just 1/2 on 46 count. And that one I started on May 15th. So right after the little weekend stitch, was just practicing with little fabric. The next one is started on May 22nd. And that again was part of my May stitching plans. So that, and again, it's in another one of these little budgie palm frond fabric. That's Yellow Submarine. Again, Magical Mystery Tour, Blackbird Designs. And this is where I am on that one. And that is on a piece of 28 count Dusk by Jody at Steel City Stitchers, called for Floss. And that's 2/2. So, it's cute. Okay, and then, oh, and that, yeah, Jody, Steel City. The next one is Long and Winding Road. And that's the last one from that Magical Mysteries Tour series that I was working on. The previous, I have 2 finishes. So I have Blackbird and Eleanor Rigby are already finished from this series. So, and that is in, that's got like just a little crosshatch backing fabric. So it's just simple textured fabric. I don't know what that is. A little piece of lint. Let's get that off of there. So, and this doesn't have, these ones I made without any kind of a fleece interfacing, but I think I'm going to try that next, just to give it a little bit more oomph. But this was just, you know, with a regular interfacing, and then just with a, you know, whatever heavy vinyl. And I use Jenn Craft. I use Jenn's tutorial, and I've linked that before, but I'll link that again, because that's the one that I tend to use the most consistently, and I have upsized it a little bit. I don't think you'll see that in any of these ones, but in some of my later project bags that I've got used for some kitted up things, I just made them a little bit bigger because they tend to fit the pattern just a little bit better on some of those larger. Like Barbara Anna has her pattern books are just a little bigger. Anyway, that's that one. And this is Long and Winding Road. That's where I am right now. That I started on May 29th, and that is on a 32 count Prairie Grass fabric by Seraphim. And that's 2/2 with the called for floss. Alright, so next up is a stitch along. And this is from the Emma Congdon book, Cross Stitch for the Earth. And it's design number 19, which is there. And I am doing this with, this is the Seasonal Earth Sal, which was started by Stitch Again Sam. So this is on a 25 count generic even weave. I think I got this at Hirschner's, just in a large, I think I got a yard of it. And it's kind of nice to stitch on, but I'm doing this with called for DMC, and I'm stitching this 1/1. So, little baby. But it's really cute. And I'm just doing the exact called for colors. So, I think that's coming out okay. Just keep plugging away on that. Next one, started this one on June the 3rd. And that is in this project bag. And I did, this is a start that I did for Start All the Red Samplers. And that is, and again, I'll put a picture of the completed, because I don't have my iPad on. But this is Modern Folk Embroidery, the Hound and the Hare. And I've got that stitched on 36 count cream. And it's 1/2 with the Gentle Arch thread in Schoolhouse Red. And I love that chart. It's really fun. Okay. And that, remarkably, is all of my works in progress, except for, this is the final one. I'm always a little reluctant. Well, I haven't done it before, really. Only once did I show an out of print chart that I got, and that was in my second video, I think. And it was about Nisi Lynn had done a giveaway for a Blackbird Designs chart called the Sampler House, which I had then searched and searched and searched for and found. And I haven't stitched that yet, but I do have a plan for that that I'll share a little bit later down the road. But another one that I had been looking for, and I really didn't talk about it too much because it's sort of hard to find, was this chart. Spoiler alert, I found it. So, Sally Spencer, Birds of a Feather. This is one of those out of print charts that you can find on eBay for $1 jillion. But I love that sampler. And I've seen people finish it, and I love it, and I had been looking for it for a long time. It popped up on eBay, and it was for way too much money. And I was like, I can't do it. And 24 hours later, when it did not get purchased, that individual, and I didn't realize this until later that it was the same one, lowered the price significantly. And it was just under what I've set as my sort of mental threshold. So that said, I'm going to share some charts later in my haul, and as part of our giveaway today, I'm actually going to share 3 out of print charts that I'm giving away. So yeah, anyway, those don't necessarily have anything to do with each other than the fact that I know that an out of print chart is not always something that everyone has access to. For me, it was important, and I really, really liked this chart, and I am already almost done with it. So anyway, and then I'll make a decision about what we're going to do with this one once it's done, whether it's sharing it, you know, around sort of an exchange or whatever. But I would like to sort of put something back into the community. So that's, you know, not easy to get. I don't know. I don't know the best way to handle those. All I know is that I wanted this chart. I got it. The end. So this is Sally Spencer that I just wrinkled. So this is Birds of a Feather, Sally Spencer sampler. This is on 40 count light hazelnut linen by XG Designs, which is a beautiful piece of fabric. And the floss that I am using is, it's a conversion that I'm using, and I tried using the photo on the front of the sampler to get colors of floss that I had in my stash that were the closest to what the chart looks like. The called for flosses, and I'll show you an example in a moment. The called for flosses are, because this is an older chart, the dye lots of those called for flosses have progressed to the point that they don't really look like this anymore. They don't look like the photo. And I know sometimes the photo is closer to either the antique sampler or to the, I don't know if this was based on an antique or not. All I know is that these colors felt closer to me than the original called for flosses and the way that they look today. So yeah. So again, these are the called for flosses, or these are not the called for flosses, but as an example, they call for Tropical Ocean by the Gentle Art. And on the chart, Tropical Ocean, if you can see it, if it will cooperate, let's see. So the letter A in the sampler up here, all the way at the top, is Tropical Ocean. That's the called for. So it's a very, very almost white, but it's blue with variegation in it that makes it lighter. So if you look down at the date at the very bottom, if you can see that, and I might just have to take a picture and zoom in on it so that you can see it better, because I don't think it's going to focus. But that date at the bottom, the 1812, I guess it's 1821. Yeah, 1821. It's almost white at the beginning. So this is Tropical Ocean. And Tropical Ocean is almost, it's like blue-green to blue. It doesn't really have any white in it at all. And that may look different when it's just stitched one strand over the fabric, but that doesn't look to me the way that it's represented on the chart. And I wanted it closer to the chart. And so what I ended up doing was swapping out and using Trade Wind. Now Trade Wind has another interesting kind of element to it, because it goes, the variegation goes from like a light blue to almost it's like a dirty white, which I'm okay with. I sort of like it. But that's what I'm using instead. So anyway, just a little bit of a conversion. All right, so those are all my works in progress. That's my start. And so I'm just going to continue to work on those. I'm going to try not to start too much before I get at least probably 3 or 4 of those done. And a few of them are pretty close to being done. G. Leger is pretty close to being done. Sally Spencer is going to be done within the next couple of weeks here. So and Funky Menagerie, definitely going to be wrapping those up. So those 3 I would like to have done before my next video. So I'll have those as finishes. And then the fully finished piece of, which is the Honey Bunny. There's still a few things to stitch on Honey Bunny, but it's negligible. So plans. I am going to be starting, and this is going to be for Ellen Reed's birthday. Just plan to, and this is Mary Griffiths. So that's a GGR chart. And that I'm going to be stitching on the Called For Weeks Dye Works Beige. And so these are most of the Called For flosses at this point that I've got. So it's going to be this, which I think will be pretty. It's a little, that's blown it out a little bit. Too close to the light. So I love those. They're really pretty. I'm still missing a couple. But yeah. So I think we're starting that middle of July coming up here in the next couple weeks. I've got that kitted up and ready to go. One of these days I'm going to have to do like a kit parade where I show you all of the projects. I think I counted and I have 15 like chart picked out, fabric picked out, all the flosses together in a project bag, ready to go. And I just don't want to have all of those as starts. And I don't know. I think Mama Loves You GB actually had it right. She was saying that she doesn't have a problem having a number of starts going because if she's got the fabric, the chart, and the flosses in her stash anyway, what's the difference between that and having it kitted and started? She's totally right. I don't know. I think that somehow for me, it's like once it moves into that different bin, it just feels different. But it shouldn't. It really shouldn't. It should be exactly like, I mean, when we have a stash of things, I guess maybe it's that the stash of things that you have, maybe your fabric, you know, it's still the possibilities of using it on something different. So I want to talk about now stuff I got since the last video. This is not all the stuff I got, but these are the things that I kind of want to talk about today because the last time I was telling you that I was looking for a sewing machine table, and in so doing found a remarkable sewing machine, which I shared. Well then, now I need 2 sewing machine tables, right? Need is a really strong word in there, but to have the ability to put a sewing machine in a room where I've got enough space to spread out, I wanted to stow that sewing machine away and have it be a piece of furniture in a room that we use in general. So the cabinet that I found that works the best and that actually I ended up putting the Singer 201 into is called the Copenhagen desk. It was made by the Singer company. They had catalogs of all of the different sewing machine tables and cabinets that they sold with their machines. And so this was one that originally, you know, they built, and they're not too rare, but they are kind of hard to find in good condition. And I was able to track one down on Craigslist. Now it came with a sewing machine and all of the accessories for that sewing machine. And I'll show you a photo of that. That sewing machine, even though I took it out of the cabinet, it is kind of remarkable. And again, I'm such a sucker for doing research on these things because I just love the way that sewing machines were made back then. They were really well built. They were really specific for certain uses, and they still work great. And there are people, there are a few YouTube channels on folks that are either they restore, maintain, repair, resell certain types of sewing machines. I really enjoy watching details about those, and ultimately those became too expensive because they were such high quality. They became too expensive to continue manufacturing and selling because it was, you know, we've kind of become a, you know, understandably cost is it's when sewing became more of a hobby. I mean, let's face it, when it became more of an avocation rather than a vocation or a necessity where people were, it costs more now to sew your own clothing or to sew your own quilts or sew your own linens than it does to buy them. And I think that has everything to do with why the things that we craft, why the things that we spend time doing are you know, we appreciate that. We appreciate the time that goes into that because it's not something that's common, you know. You can go and buy those things. Those things are easy to buy. It's cheaper to buy them. You know, it's cheaper to buy, you know, a rayon turtleneck than it is to go and knit one. But there is that satisfaction in knowing that you've made something. So sewing machines kind of went. That's I think why I have such a penchant for them. Why I love them so much, because they are. It's a bygone era, but they were really well made, and the things that were made with them in most cases were really well made. So this machine that came with the desk, it's called a Singer Touch and Sew, and it was this particular one I think someone probably invested a fair amount in because it was the high-end version. I'm not sure it's ever been used. When you look at the interior of it, when you look at the inside, there's no oil, there's no dirt, there's no damage to the interior decals. It is in pristine condition, and there was a little dust on it, I think, from just where it was sitting in the cabinet, but all of the boxes for the accessories and everything are just in, you know, so that was kind of interesting. It's like digging, it's like a time capsule. It was cool. The second cabinet that I found though, was for the white, because I wanted to have one that I could use in here in my craft room that was a little bit smaller profile and that I could put the 764 in. I use that machine a lot for project bags. I use it for doing zigzag stitches along the edges of my linen because I don't have a serger and I don't need one. So I zigzag stitch the edges just so it doesn't fray. And I know they don't, you know, linen doesn't, it's not like it's just fraying like crazy, but it is nice to not have to deal with that and just to sort of keep an edge on it as you're working on it. Because I take it in and out of my scroll frames pretty frequently. So, so anyway, I went ahead and got another, there was an ad that came up on Craigslist that was just a few minutes away from my house. And it was a family that are sort of an estate sale type situation where they're going through their, you know, this woman's mother-in-law's equipment and, or not equipment, but going through her mother-in-law's belongings. And she was an avid sewer, and she also did some cross stitch and a lot of needlework, a lot of needlepoint. And this was her sewing machine cabinet, and the machine that she originally bought the cabinet for was out and in a carry case. And the, you know, obviously I wanted the sewing table, but they were selling it, you know, you take the machine too, which I was more than happy to do, even though I don't need another sewing machine. So talked about the Singer 201. Singer 201 was the Rolls Royce of sewing machines, and it was also called the dressmaker's machine. So it was the highest end version of the Singer, I think, at the time, and again, just the way it was built. Well, the Singer 1591 was the only other, I think the only other Singer that came with the potted motor that was on the backside. The direct drive sewing machines. The 1591 was called the Farmer's Wife's sewing machine, and that thing can stitch through pretty much anything. If you can't stitch through it, you need an industrial sewing machine. Those they're just tankier and they stitch great, and that's what came with this sewing machine table. So I didn't set up my entire rigmarole to bring that in and show you guys. But at some point, I think I'm just going to put in a photo because I don't have it out yet. I don't have it out and set up. I haven't gone through it to clean it or to test it and to make sure everything is working properly. It was put away in a case according to a little post-it note that was inside the sewing machine table that this woman had put together. She put it away some years ago, and so I'm really looking forward to being able to dig into that one. But it has, oh, I love, this is so great, and I'll show a picture of this, because when people used their machines a lot, sometimes what they would do is they would wrap a piece of fabric, maybe a few layers of fabric around the upper portion of the sewing machine, and they would stick their pins in it directly above. And so some of those old Singer machines would come with something called pin rash, and this one has that, and I love it. I know a lot of people would be like, oh, it's the finish isn't, no. That makes it really cool to me, because that means it got used. That means someone used the crap out of it, and they were stitching and they were making all kinds of things, and I love that. So, and it also came with a stool. So this is the fabric that's on the lid of the stool. And I love this fabric. It's fantastic. So I was out in the driveway. I brought it home. Getting ready to unload it. My husband was helping me unload it, and I hadn't really, peeled into everything really closely yet. And I pulled the stool out, and I'm like, this thing is so cool. I love this so much. I'm thinking the only way that I would love this stool more is if the top came off and there was a compartment underneath it. And it's such a low profile, like you can't even really, it doesn't even look like anything, But then I'm taking it out, and I'm sort of like, looking around the edges to see, if the fabric, if I would be able to clean the fabric if it needed to be. And then I realized that the side of it, the edge was a little bit loose. And of course it opens, and of course there was stuff in it, and of course I had to sit down in the driveway because I was like, this is so great. It's the greatest thing ever. Anyway, she was really into wool needlework. And there was an old Dimensions Norman Rockwell wool embroidery chart, 2 of them, with a few unused skeins of wool that were with it. So anyway, it's kind of cool. There is her sewing notions were still in the drawers. In the other cabinet there, it was just the accessory boxes that came with the sewing machine. So there wasn't really anything personal in there. But this one, the machine with 1591 and with the stool came with a lot of her, buttons and zippers and, little tools that came along with. And I think, again, it's one of those things that you've got to sort of respect some of that. And you've got to respect the fact that these were someone's blinds. You could tell she loved to sew. And you can tell that she was very into crafting. And she had inside that stool was a folder. And it had patterns, and it had some drawings, and it had a class. It looked like there was it was not a mimeograph. I can't remember the name of it. It's like a printout of a class that she had gone to, and kind of outlined what they were it's just really, it's a lot of personal stuff, and treating that with respect and really going through it, I think is, it's important. And I know that sometimes we find things like the sort of Save the Stitches hashtag, where we find things in thrift stores or come across them at estate sales, and the family is, they're selling those things. They're getting rid of those things. And I know that the reaction for some of us is like, how could you, what? Do you know how much time someone spent on this? And we do these things because we enjoy it. I don't have an expectation around, people in my family hanging on to those things if I'm not here, right? That the enjoyment comes from doing the craft and spending the time on it and meeting other people that have similar interests. And it doesn't, if someone doesn't have that same, and I think that's why Flosstube is so important, and why I think that's why we love watching each other do these things, and why it's such a good community, because we have that in common. And our family doesn't necessarily, people around us don't necessarily have the same. They appreciate that we enjoy it. Niecy Lynn brought up something I thought was really smart too. She's like, you got to be careful when you're gifting cross stitch, because not everybody appreciates it, right? And their receiving it may not have the same. It's like, oh, hey, cool, thanks, that's so nice, and put it off to the side, and it didn't get the same. Like, we made this thing, it took so long, and so you really, we learn, and we learn that that's not why we do this. We don't do this necessarily for other people. This is something that we get a tremendous amount of enjoyment from, and so when people's families are passing those things along, I'm going to get a ton of joy out of this sewing machine cabinet. I'm going to get joy out of the notions and the things that she left. And they went to somebody who is going to care for them. And they went to somebody who is going to continue that legacy of making things and in, putting things out into the world that are beautiful. Hopefully. I mean, I'm not saying that I make beautiful, amazing things, but I am saying that you're continuing to do what that person loved to do. And that's for us. That's what we do. So anyway, it was really nice to be able to sort of, go through and learn a little bit about her and read little notes that she left, just about where the machine was purchased and when it was taken out of the cabinet, and when it got put back and what city it was in. And so I just really enjoy those. Those details are things that are important, and I really, really value them. So anyway. Okay, so I mentioned her earlier, but Lori, and here's her channel again, Textile Style, is a cross-stitcher and quilter, and she and Olivia B started a Blackbird Design quilt along. So for us cross stitchers, we know Blackbird Designs as cross stitchers. But the quilting books, some of them are still in print. Olivia B and Lori both did some flip throughs of the books, and they are going to be, and have already started, doing tutorials for applique quilting. And I think I'll start with doing a few quilting panels on, just with the individual blocks, and using those in project bags as a way to start, rather than embarking on an entire, I'm gonna make this big quilt and then start it and get overwhelmed and feel like I can't do it. So my goal is to just start out with making a project bag where the back of the project bag is one of those applique quilt blocks. So there are a few, this book is still available. This is called Tending the Garden by Blackbird Designs. And there are not only quilt projects in here, but there's a cross stitch pattern, at least one. There's some rug hooking, and I'm going to be careful about not showing some of the instructions. But this is, let's see, that is a part of the applique quilt that I'm thinking of doing. So I'd like to do one of those blocks. This is another one. This one's a little more complex, but they're just really pretty. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. Go to their videos. They've got the complete flip throughs. So I did pick up some fabric. That was part of my haul. I'm not going to show you. It's too much. Just, it's back here. You can see it. But, so I'm looking forward to watching more of their videos and trying to decide which of the applique methods they're going to teach will make the most sense for me. So, but I'm really looking forward to that. Really what I want to be doing is making more project bags. Now that I've got my sewing set up, all put together, I am ready to make some project bags, and that will be fun. Okay, so I thought that I would do some giveaways today, and I have 4 charts. They're all bee themed, and on Craigslist again, so an ad came up online, and it was a woman who was destashing some of her cross stitch charts. I'm sure her daughter was helping her to do that. And it's one of those like Craigslist, like it was a little rough to sort of schedule. It took a little while to schedule. I had replied to her ad and didn't really hear anything, and then a few days later she had replied, but I missed it because I was at work, and so it was like back and forth, and finally, you know, it's one of those like, hey, we're gonna meet in this grocery store parking lot, you know, meet me here by the gas station. So it's like, okay, like middle of the day, like at least there's other people around. I like, you know, you're back into the parking lot. Make a quick getaway if you need to. But she was very pleasant, and you know, so we get out of the car, and I just asked, you know, so are you a cross stitcher? And she's like, no, it's my mom, but she's got way too many charts. It's like, I can relate. But anyway, so she hands me this stack. It's like 65 cross stitch charts in this thing. I think she had added more than she even originally advertised, and so going through them was kind of fun. Speaking of respecting people's things, but there were a lot of things I didn't recognize, and I am under no illusions that I will ever get through all of these. So in going through, I'm not going to go through all of them on this channel. That's just not, we're not going to do that. But I will share a few of them because I think it's kind of important to just, you know, let's put them back out there. At least 3 of these are not in print anymore. You can't get them. So if you would like to win any of these, please be a subscriber and like the video. That's not really, you can like it or not. But please be a subscriber, that would be very nice. And I will give you a word to use for each of these. So there are going to be a total of 4, and so you'll use that word in your comment, or you can use all 4 words in your comment. You can only win one of the charts today. So if I use the random comment picker and it picks your name, and you've commented again on the next one and you get it again, you get a different chart again, I'll re-roll it. So it's just one per person, please. Did I belabor that enough? Okay, first one I think you can still get. First one is still in circulation, and this is by Little House Needleworks, and it is called Queen Bee, and it's from their All Dolled Up. So that's really cute. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, can you see it? It's a little bit dark. Anyway, just super cute. It's got a little floral, little border, and queen bee. So if you want to win this one, use the word queen. Queen. This next one is a Cricut collection. This is called Flowers and Bees. This is out of print. Or at least the only place I could see it available was on eBay and Amazon. And I do believe that this is out of print. But it is cute. So Cricut collection number 157. It's got 3 little bee fairies on it, and it's super cute. It says to be or not to be. Look at their cute little dresses and shoes. Super cute. So if you want this one, Cricut. The word's going to be Cricut. This next one is also out of print. And this is by Just Nan. And this is in their Shenanigans series. Focus. Is that focusing? That's better. There we go. And this is called Bow Bumble. And it's got the instructions for the little stand-up. And it is super cute. And it comes with the charm. So she purchased the charm to go along with that. And the charm is a little tiny bumblebee. Can you see it? Yeah. So that bee, and it goes right there on his neck. All right, so if you want to win that one, the word's going to be bumble. And the last one, and I couldn't really find much about this, but this is from a designer called the Stitcher's Hands, A Stitcher's Hands. And this is Becky Boo's Queen Bee. And I really couldn't find anything about this. I believe that it may be out of print. I don't know if Becky Boo was like an ongoing sort of a series theme, or I don't know. I wish I knew more. This is the disadvantage to being a brand new stitcher, is that you guys probably all have really good background information on, and I'm probably butchering this, but anyway, I thought this was a really cute chart, and I think that you guys would enjoy stitching it. So let's use the word boo if you want to win this one. So again, Stitcher's Hands, Becky Boo's Queen Bee. Use the word boo. For the Just Nan chart, use the word bumble. For Flowers and Bees by Cricut, the Cricut collection, you're going to use the word Cricut. And then this one, go ahead and just use the word Queen. And that is for the Little House Needleworks, Queen Bee. Okay, so those will stay open until my next video. So I'll probably make another one here in the next couple weeks, 2.5 weeks or so. So you have from now until then to comment. I usually will take that, I'll use the random comment picker and do it as I am getting ready to post the videos, or as I'm getting ready to record, so that I can announce the winners. You can enter from anywhere. I don't mind shipping internationally, with the one caveat that depending on where, I may not be able to put it in a rigid mailer. I might have to use just a regular manila letter type envelope. I won't fold them, but if it can't go through, what I found, if it can't go through a sorting machine and bend at a certain angle, they consider it to be a parcel and the postage goes. So if you are international, we may have to sort of wrangle a little bit with the postage, and it may have to end up coming in a flat mailer. So yeah, anyway, I think that that's all I've got for today. I hope you guys are staying safe. I'm going to leave you with a little more footage from our 2013 bee odyssey. Anyway, but as usual, it was great to chat with all of you. And if I've forgotten anything, I'm sure I will put it in the next one. So anyway, that's it. Hope you guys are all staying safe this summer, and be nice to each other and have a happy day.